Cracking down on violent crime across Ohio. Ahead on Face the State.
It's not stopping southbound 30th.
State, local, and federal law enforcement teaming up to take down criminals. Ohio Department of Public Safety Director Andy Wilson joins me in studio to break down the state's violent crime reduction initiative. Also, property tax relief. Leaders on both sides say it's the top issue. Now, several bills are working their way through the legislature as a grassroots group works to eliminate property taxes altogether. I'm talking with a state representative who has authored several bills to give property tax relief, but at what cost to schools? Face the State starts now.
We got somebody behind 1910 Lynn sitting on these back steps behind this house. I don't know if it's your suspect or not, but there's somebody sitting on the back steps. All right, officer going around the house. You're going through the yard right now. Just watch yourself.
From the air and on the ground, law enforcement officers are swooping in to prevent and solve crimes and arrest suspects in cities across the Buckeye State. That includes this case recently in Cincinnati, where they arrested a man in connection to the assault of a police officer. As part of the state's violent crime reduction initiative, officers made several arrests in Cincinnati. Two recent reduction initiative operations in Cleveland netted 24 felony arrests and recovered nearly 20 illegal guns. Governor Mike DeWine says the initiative brings state, local, and federal agencies together to take violent criminals and guns off the streets. The state also supports local law enforcement through the Ohio Violent Crime Reduction Grant Program. Since it launched in 2021, the program has awarded more than $84 million to 200 local law enforcement agencies. The state says the money goes toward targeted programs and enhanced technology to help prevent and solve incidents of violent crime. Thanks for joining me for Face the State today. I'm Doug Petcash. Besides Cleveland and Cincinnati, the state has supported similar operations in Columbus, as well as Toledo, Youngstown, and Dayton. Joining me now is Ohio Department of Public Safety Director Andy Wilson. Director Wilson, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
I appreciate it so much. So why did the state start this violent crime reduction initiative?
Listen, Governor DeWine, with his history as both a prosecutor and the Attorney General, understands that the best way to fight crime in Ohio is collaboratively do it as a team. And we have resources at the state that a lot of agencies just don't have. We have the helicopter. We have Ohio Investigative Unit officers who can go into troubled liquor establishments. So the governor wants us to surge those resources, working shoulder to shoulder with local agencies and really dealing with their most violent offenders.
Why is it necessary?
It's absolutely necessary because the number one priority of government is to protect the citizens. Protect the people that we serve. And if we don't get that piece right, nothing else thrives. So it doesn't matter what your educational curriculum plan is. If your schools aren't safe or the communities around your schools aren't safe, then the kids aren't going to thrive. It doesn't matter how good your downtown business revitalization plan is. If people are scared that they're going to get robbed, they're going to get mugged when they go downtown, they're not going to go downtown.
Is it in response to a spike in crime, or is this just something that you want to do to kind of keep the spike from happening?
Well, it's kind of both. So we had an extreme spike in 21 in violent crime, and murder rates in all of our cities were basically at record highs. So we actually started these concepts where we pushed more in this area back then. Now you'll see these cities, we're still having some problems with gun violence, too many homicides. So the governor's working with the local police chiefs. We're working with all of our federal partners, just really looking at targeting the small number of violent offenders who are disproportionately committing murders and shootings in these communities.
I had talked to you off camera about Youngstown.
Right.
And that's one example where you're talking about a small group of people committing a large number of the violent crimes.
Right. So in 2021, Youngstown had a flare-up in their shootings. And we came in, we brought some analysts, we brought some of our resources in. Our analysts looked at shooting data, they looked at reports, they looked at a bunch of different information. And there was around 70 shootings, not just of people, but cars, houses. And when they did the analysis of those 70 shootings, it was 6 people responsible for those 70 shootings. Now look, if you get those 6 people off the streets, and those 6 people all had long records. They were your classic repeat violent offenders. If you get those 6 people off of your streets, you put them in prison where they belong, you exponentially cut your crime in that community. And we've seen that play out in Youngstown.
So how does this work? It's not the city just saying, hey, we're coming in. I mean, the state just saying, hey, we're coming in. Is it that the cities have to request the help?
Yes, we are a home rule state here in Ohio. The agency that is closest to the people is the agency that is best suited by law, actually, to administer policing services to that community. And if you think about it, it just makes sense. They know the beliefs, the norms, the values of that community. They're most answerable to that community. We don't have the state police in Ohio. We have the state highway patrol. So if you want our resources, we have to work as a team. You have to invite us to come in to work with you on these initiatives. And then when you do that, or when a mayor or when a chief does that, then we can bring the whole menu of resources that we have. Again, the helicopter, the OIU agents, our intel analysts. There's just a lot of stuff that we can bring to the fight.
But you can also team up with federal, right? I saw one of these incidents, I believe alcohol, tobacco, firearms was brought in, as well as some other federal agencies.
Yes, we use all of our partners, so federal, state, and local. And the key with that is one of the problems we're having in our cities is the courts. The courts just aren't holding these people accountable. So you'll have somebody who's been to prison 5 or 6 times. It's clear that they're not going to follow the law. It's clear that they're going to continue to be violent. And they'll pick up, they'll get caught with a gun, and they're right out the next day on a low bond. As a matter of fact, you opened up talking about our initiative this week in Cincinnati, where the officer was assaulted. The person who assaulted that officer got a $1,000 10% bond, which means $100, and they're back out on the streets. So the federal side, the federal rules are just a lot stricter in some of these areas with repeat violent offenders and people who have long criminal histories. So our federal partners have been coming in and leveraging the power, really kind of the federal government and the federal courts, to get some of these offenders that we know are perpetual problems in the cities out.
Okay, so is this at all related to the Trump administration's efforts to bump up crime enforcement in the big cities that we've seen, like with the National Guard going to DC, Memphis, Chicago? Is it anything like that? Should people confuse it in any way?
Well, look, no. The governor is he's a public safety minded governor. There's no, if you look at his history, that's his background. So it really comes from that. The governor understands that the National Guard isn't best suited to fight crime. Can they be a deterrent? Yeah, absolutely. Can they, by their presence, prevent crime? Sure, absolutely. But if you actually look at who's best suited to fight crime, who's best suited to understand who the criminals are and go after those violent criminals, it's these teams, it's these task forces of law enforcement. So that's what we're doing. We're leveraging the people who are best suited to fight crime.
And who are you going after? This doesn't sound like it's random. I mean, is it people
No.
who have warrants? Is it you're out searching for people that you want to make contact with?
That's the beauty of this. This is not over-policing. This is not saturation into a neighborhood sweeping up everybody. The officers and actually the community members in these communities, they know who their shooters are. And like I said, it's a small percentage of people who are your shooters, who are committing this gun violence. We are focusing on those folks. And if you're one of those people, if you've been to prison multiple times, if you have a violent history and you continue to carry guns and use those guns, there should be no refuge for you. And they're really, the only answer is to get you out of the community. When we get you out of the community and when we put you away where you belong, it settles down violent crime in the community. No doubt about it.
How productive has the Violent Crime Reduction grant program been?
Oh, it's been great. So the violent crime grant that we've been putting out under the DeWine administration, they're really centered around getting technology into the hands of folks who need it, law enforcement agencies that need it, as part of a bigger plan to prevent or reduce gun violence or violent crime. Agencies have been able to purchase technology that they have told me again and again, this is the best piece of technology.
Are you talking about drones, communication equipment?
It's a little bit of everything. So it can be drones, it can be communication equipment, it can be funding focused initiatives like this. Flock cameras, the license plate readers, those are amazing tools when it comes to preventing crime or catching somebody immediately after crime has happened.
So what's next?
Look, we're going to keep pushing. So we are all over the state right now. We are going to continue to push. As a matter of fact, when we were just up in Cleveland a couple days ago, we did an initiative up there. I talked to the governor while I was there at the briefing. I stepped out of the briefing, told him, hey, we're doing this briefing right now. He said, go in there and tell those officers to keep pushing. Keep pushing. Because if you want to be serious about reducing violent crime, you have to put pressure on those criminals. Again, we know who you are, we know what you're doing, and now we have to hold you accountable. The other side of it too is, look, reducing violent crime is a three-legged stool. It's law enforcement, it's prosecutors, and it's the courts. And if you're going to do it right, all three legs have to be doing their part. Any one of those legs is loose, the whole stool is wobbly. And we've got to get the courts. We've got to shine a light on these courts that aren't holding these people accountable, because that's the loose end right now. And these people are slipping right out the backside, and they're going out and committing more crimes.
Director Andy Wilson, thank you so much for your time today
Thank you.
and explaining what these initiatives are all about.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Have a great day. Well, still ahead on Face the State, working to relieve the sting of high property taxes. Several bills at the State House aim to do that. The state representative who introduced them joins me to explain how they would give relief and responds to concerns about the impact on schools. If you own a home in Ohio, you've probably felt it. Property taxes have really climbed in recent years. But now a group wants to get rid of them altogether through a constitutional amendment. The question is, if property taxes go away, who pays the bill? A new study shows how one possible answer could impact your paycheck.
We caught up with Kevin Kimball while he was walking his dog. He worries about the impact of eliminating property taxes.
I understand that we use that money to pay for certain things, certain public services.
Reynoldsburg Mayor Joe Begany shares that concern about funding for police, fire, and other city services. The city's budget is about $33 million.
The concern would be is if all of that funding is reduced or eliminated completely, those services still need to be offered to some capacity. So what's going to be the other side of the coin?
The Nonpartisan Tax Foundation recently looked at what it would take in income taxes to make up for the lost property taxes dollar for dollar. In 2026, Ohio income tax will be a flat 2.75%. Most local municipalities around central Ohio have income tax rates at 2.5%, so that's 5.25%. The Tax Foundation estimates in Franklin County, workers would have to pay income tax of 13.28%. In Delaware County, 11.24%, Licking County, 13.08%, and Fairfield County, 13.34%. That, of course, would mean a smaller paycheck.
If it shifted to more of an income tax rate, that's going to be something where you're going to see your less take-home pay, and you may have more of an impact on a regular basis.
Mayor Begany says the city would probably look for ways to reduce spending before increasing the local income or sales tax. Kevin Kimball rents, so he doesn't directly pay property taxes. He thinks it would be unfair to pay a much higher income tax.
I feel like it would take me away from or make it harder for me to eventually be able to own property if I can never save money because I'm paying so much in taxes.
Volunteers with the Committee to Abolish Ohio Property Taxes are collecting signatures to get the proposed constitutional amendment on the ballot in November of 2026. Lawmakers have been working on property tax relief measures. On September 30th, the governor's property tax working group submitted 20 recommendations for reform. Bills are also working their way through the legislature. The House recently passed two bills. House Bill 129 would require emergency, substitute, and other tax levies be included in the 20 mil floor calculation for school funding purposes. Essentially, it would prevent tax hikes residents don't get to vote on. House Bill 309 expands the authority of county budget commissions to modify levies and reduce taxes. And HB 186 is still in committee and could come to a House vote soon. It would provide a property tax credit back to property owners in certain school districts. The Legislative Service Commission estimates it would reduce property taxes by $1.7 billion over 3 years, meaning schools would see a cut of that amount of funding. School leaders and advocates say that will lead to cuts to programs and layoffs. State Representative David Thomas of Jefferson has introduced numerous bills on property tax relief, including these three. He joins me now from out on the road in Akron, not driving right now. Good morning, Representative Thomas.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for making time. So in layman's terms, can you please explain what House Bill 186 would do if it passes?
So House Bill 186 essentially says that the schools that are at the 20 mil floor, those are the ones that get that minimum guaranteed tax rate. They've spiked tremendously in revenue and tax assessments to the property owners. So 186 would say moving forward, that spike or that extra revenue coming in should be capped at inflation. Instead of being 30 or even 40% increases, which is what we've seen over the past couple of years, it would just be capped at inflation. But we actually start that cap starting next year in 2026. And so the schools that spiked, they'll receive less revenue from the taxpayers, still more than what they were getting prior to the last revaluation. But our taxpayers will see an immediate decrease in their tax bills because we'll be capping that revenue to inflation.
So what do you say to those who argue this and other bills will be devastating or disastrous for schools and therefore students?
So really what's been devastating over the past 5 years have been these massive unvoted tax increases on our homeowners. We're hearing this from all across the state. You just did a great intro, really some of the concerns from homeowners and why there's this big push to abolish property taxes altogether. Folks just see this as out of control. They've seen these huge increases. And we're not saying to schools, you have to pay back what was paid to the property owners. We're not going retroactive. We're simply saying moving forward, what most folks I believe in Ohio would agree with, that unvoted increases should only be at inflation or less. We're saying that should be the case moving forward, starting next year. And many schools, we heard in testimony this past Wednesday even, they just had the revaluation last year, for example. They may have spiked. We're decreasing that spike, but they're still actually getting more than what they received even last year. So it's a decrease on the increase that they're getting from the taxpayers.
All right, now the way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but House Bill 186 and others are in response to one of Governor DeWine's property tax vetoes. And he said he vetoed that bill because of its potential impact on schools and students. Are you confident this new bill will first pass in the legislature and avoid the governor's veto pen?
So House Bill 186 is actually, we've been working on this bill for a little over a year now. 186 was one of the major bills that the study group the governor put together that they're pushing. We've added this new kind of policy where we start the cap next year as opposed to next revaluation, simply because we need tax bills to decrease in response to all the frustrations of the voters out there. I'm pretty confident that the governor has seen just how strong our taxpayers are wanting changes. We've enhanced this bill along with others to be more responsive to what the study group has been pushing as well or said. So I'm very confident with the legislative effort that we have to push this bill through, just like our two last week. And we have another one coming up as well, House Bill 335. So a lot of activity all around, but our taxpayers need this, and I think the governor will respond.
Let's talk about the urgency, too. So how much are the efforts to pass all of these bills motivated by the proposed constitutional amendment to abolish Ohio property taxes?
Well, I can tell you that over the last 5 years, the legislature has not been able to achieve, really any type of meaningful changes in property tax policy. And that's just not the last 5 years. That's really almost the last 2 decades or so. I think that's definitely a piece of this. We're now able to show colleagues and folks in the legislature, the taxpayers are very, very upset and they're done. They're tapped out. That's definitely a push for this. I can tell you too, our new freshman class coming in, I'm only 10 months into the legislature, for example, we all kind of got elected hearing every single day at the door-to-door efforts, property taxes are our number one issue. So this has just been building and building, and the voters are saying it. Now I think the legislative efforts are moving that direction too.
Yeah, Speaker Huffman has said, if that measure passes to abolish property taxes, that we would be in a whole new world in 2027. What impact do you think it would have? And do you worry it will pass?
So I am very, very knowledgeable of the folks that are pushing the amendment, the average, taxpayers who are signing it. I think I would not bet against it failing. I think it has very strong grassroots support all across the state. And it would be the biggest really change or just overhaul of Ohio's, government at the local, state level in our state's history. Our fabric is kind of intertwined with our three layers of what we use to fund services, the property, sales, and income tax. And, take one of those away, naturally, we all still want some of those services. And so you have to fund those in different means or in different ways. I think it will be a big change for Ohio's government, but also we as taxpayers have to have a mindset change of asking ourselves, how much are we really willing to pay for the services that we want? And are we willing, because we're going to need to, are we willing to have less services and have cuts in services because we're no longer willing to pay what's currently being paid in taxes?
We only have a short time left, and so a quick question, I suppose. What are the recommendations that came out of the governor's property tax working group, if you can point to one, besides its support of House Bill 186? I know that it recommended passing 186 in its recommendations. Is there one that stands out, like homestead exemptions, circuit breakers, any of those?
Our big effort is essentially capping unvoted increases moving forward and giving the voters a lot more say. The working group supported the bills that we passed last week, House Bill 129 and House Bill 309, as you mentioned earlier. And they also supported the bill, ideally, we're going to be passing out this month too, which is House Bill 335, to cap and limit inside millage to townships, villages, cities, counties, that type of thing. I think that's all very doable and workable. We've actually allowed for counties to increase homestead and direct credits to folks. We've seen a good number of counties do that as well this year. The rest of the recommendations, I don't think as much.
Okay. Representative Thomas, I thank you so much. And I believe this is a first that someone has joined me from their car for Face the State. So I appreciate you making the arrangements to make it happen.
Oh, thanks for being flexible with me too.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time. Have a great day. The battle over lines on a map. The Democrats have proposed a new congressional map. The Republicans have not. What leaders have to say about where things stand as the process moves into its next phase. The battle to redraw Ohio's U.S. congressional district map is about to move into its next phase, still with no agreement in sight. Governor Mike DeWine has called the first meeting of the Ohio Redistricting Commission for Tuesday morning. Last month, the Joint Committee on Congressional Redistricting failed to approve a new bipartisan map. So now the 7-member Redistricting Commission, with 5 Republicans and 2 Democrats, will be tasked with drawing a new political map for Ohio's 15 U.S. congressional districts. Democrats proposed the map on the right. It would create 8 districts that favor Republicans and 7 that favor Democrats. Under the current map on the left, Republicans hold 10 of Ohio's 15 seats in Congress. So far, Republicans have not proposed a map.
If there's a proposal that I think the parties, the members of the Redistricting Commission can collectively pass, we would probably present that at that meeting.
Phase 1, September, no Republican map. 2 weeks into October, no Republican map. Voters in 2018 established a clear process for us to follow. They want to see legislators produce maps, propose them, debate them, negotiate them, come to something that feels fair and representative. We have done that as Democrats. We've introduced a map we believe is fair. The Republicans have not.
The Ohio Redistricting Commission will meet at 9 o'clock Tuesday morning at the State House. If it doesn't pass a map by the end of October, the process goes back to the General Assembly, where the majority Republicans could pass a map without Democratic support. Thank you for joining me this week for Face the State. I'm Doug Petcash. I'll see you next Sunday at 11:30. Have a great day.